men behaving madly is really terrible. There are a few moments in this that I genuinely enjoyed, and I will highlight those as we go through this, but I think this is completely taking the wrong approach. I don't agree with a lot of the messages. I was nervous that they were trying to tell one story, but it didn't work out that way. But the message at the end, I thought, was still really horrendous. This is the 4th episode of season 37 of The Simpsons. This is directed by Stephen Dean Moore, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. And I'm still really enjoying The Simpsons, and I want to make this clear that I know a lot of people really do not like the last few seasons, but for the most part, I'm actually still really enjoying them. But this one, absolutely not. Starts off establishing it's the school holidays. Lisa points out that she'll have no more homework for 14 weeks. In the UK, we get about 6 weeks. 14 sounds incredible and also kind of exhausting. And this is certainly what Bart is facing. He hasn't left his room in a week. So Marge insists that Bart and Homer do something outside. So Homer, deciding that it would have the least amount of exercise and the most amount of beer, he's going to take Bart fishing. Doesn't really go according to plan, and Marge tells Alexa, the device, that she wishes the men in her life were more manly. Straight away, I absolutely hate it. What does that even mean? Yes, there are obviously manly stereotypes, but why do they need to be more manly? And how does that automatically equate to going outdoors? Why does she need them to be quote-unquote more manly just so they can spend time outside? It's absolutely ludicrous as a concept. And Alexa suggests that they go to man camp and boy camp. And as a concept, I find that really, really uncomfortable. And the bulk of the episode sees pretty much all of the men and all of the boys from Springfield going to these camps, which in itself visually was interesting to see all of these different characters. And we had so many great characters there that I liked, but it was just so awkward. The first thing I did genuinely enjoy was the image of Ralph in the backpack. He just looked so happy. It was very, very sweet. So that very brief moment I enjoyed. Then we see them doing various activities, which are really, really boring. There are a few good lessons, but most of them seemed like they were going down the route of being problematic. And I'll talk about one in a moment. We do have a few good moments, though, at the camp. For example, Bart pretended to be Krusty, which was very funny, but his versions of Itchy and Scratchy I thought were very funny as well. Ralph says, "I'm streaming," while he's floating down the stream. It was so unexpected and really fun. There's a brief Fred Flintstone appearance, kind of, which was really great with some great sound effects there. So there were a few moments, really tiny, brief moments that I enjoyed, but they were separate to the main narrative. And then I did for a second think it was going to deliver a really terrible message. It saved itself, but then fell apart again, because the instructor or leading this camp said, "Final test, you must kill your dinner." And I thought, what are you talking about? That's absolutely ludicrous. Killing an animal does not make a man a man. It makes them an animal killer. Not that I'm vegetarian or vegan or anything, but just as plain as it is, the ability to kill an animal does not make a man a man. And thankfully, Homer turned it around. And he said, "I think a real man would adopt the duck and take care of it." And again, I don't think that's how to define a real man, if there even is such a thing, but I'm really glad that Homer managed to turn things around, and the instructor said, "That's your real answer, kindness." And I like that message, that a real man, a manly man, is a man who is kind. I think a person is somebody who is kind. So I like that message, because it did seem like for quite a while they were going down the stereotypical route, which is in itself really problematic, with some really bizarre behaviours such as killing an animal is the only way to prove you're a man. And it's completely ridiculous. They managed to turn it around, and I thought, okay, it's been boring, but at least the ultimate message is not too bad. Unfortunately, things fell apart again very, very quickly. We learn that while the men have been away, the women have been busy, I guess, being stereotypical, adding flowers to the courtroom and the meeting room, and turning the monorail into the monorail, and just being a bit ridiculous. And we do have a great bit of animation at the end, where we have the men and boys returning home, and the women and the girls are walking towards them, and Homer stops and talks with Marge, and he says to her, "Maybe we were the problem," referring to the men. What are you talking about? The episode has basically just said every man is a problem because all of the men in Springfield had gone to this camp, basically, and it said every single one of these men has been a problem. They've done the wrong things. They haven't been kind. They haven't listened. They haven't done the right thing. And that's just a ridiculous statement. Had it been just Homer, or maybe a couple of them, characters where we can see that, yeah, they're maybe not the kindest, they're not the most attentive, but this episode is implying that all men need to change, and that all women are apparently absolutely fine. And I think the messages there are disgusting. So yes, we got a great message about kindness being really important, but then that was just ripped right from under us when it heavily implied that men are problematic, women aren't, and that's the end of the story. It's absolutely diabolical. Also very boring. As I said, there are a few things here and there separate to the main narrative that I found entertaining. Ralph in the backpack, the itchy and scratchy moment, Ralph down the stream, Fred Flintstone. Other than that, it's honestly one of the worst I've seen in a very long time. And as I said, I say that as somebody who is still a fan of the show. I'm still enjoying it. But Men Behaving Manly is a terrible, terrible idea. Maybe if they'd left it with the whole duck and kindness moment, it wouldn't have been so bad. It still would have been boring. It's still generally not an entertaining episode, but the messages might not have been as gross. So it's not good. It's not a good episode at all. Sure, I'm enjoying the show still for the most part, but Men Behaving Manly was a terrible idea.